Crowd already engaged here tonight in blue line.
Along the wall, centering pass off a skate. Long ahead this goes. Breakaway going in. Byro scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey, we're gonna play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot on a goal, and it's his first goal of the season. Floating out of the air. Wow, going in. Wow, shoot.
Crowd already engaged here tonight inside the blue line.
Along the wall, centering pass off a skate. Long ahead this goes. Breakaway going in. Byro scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey, we're gonna play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot on a goal, and it's his first goal of the season. Floating out of the air. Wow, going in. Wow, shoot.
Welcome back to the Hockey Daily Reaction Show, Milan-Cortina. This is one of the few scenarios with Canada losing a game to the United States where I'm actually not upset, but Chris is very happy. Chris, give us your thoughts, and then I'm going to give you some coach's analysis of what I saw at the end.
Oh, Babs, I was on the edge of my seat. I had my daughter homesick. So what a great day to be homesick from school and be a young hockey player watching your heroes win the gold medal. That was an incredible game. I think Canada played about as well as they could have played in that game. They gave USA every single fit on planet Earth there. That was not surprising to me, given that we've seen these gold medal games go. But Hillary Knight scores in the dying minutes with the goaltender pulled, sets the all-time record for goals and points by a woman at the Olympics for Team USA. And then Megan Keller, who played more minutes than anybody in the game, finds a way to get around the defenseman and then gets in and puts one past Renee Debian, who was so good throughout the entire game. And USA finds a way to win their third ever gold medal. Since Marie-Philippe Poulin was in this game, I was like, oh boy, I don't like this going to overtime. I don't like seeing this because she's really only lost, very few elimination games in her career once prior to today. And here we go. And so Team USA, just an incredible game. And yes, American, I'm excited, all those different things. But if you look at it objectively, the U.S. probably had maybe one of their weakest performances of the entire tournament. You think about how much they dominated Canada the first time around, how much we complained about Canada's, lack of speed, and Canada had a way to answer back this year. So it was an incredible game. You have to find a way to win. Team USA did that, and I think that you got to give a ton of credit. We talked about the youth on this team. It was two veteran players making plays in the biggest moments of the game, and I can't say enough about Erin Frankel and net as well. She kept them in times where it got really, really sketchy. You need your goalie to do that for you, but I know you've got some more hard analysis. I'm going to give you the emotional analysis. I'm going to give you before I give it back to you. I just got to say, the U.S. women's program has turned a major corner here in over the last year plus, or really the last several years. That was 8 straight wins against Canada, and they do it on the biggest stage. And I'm not saying that there is a gigantic gap between the two, because we just saw it on tape. We just saw it as we saw that game unfold, that the margin of error is still very thin. But this is a monumental win for that program. I think that they have taken it to the next level, and this is really only the beginning of what I think could be an era of excellence for them.
Yeah, it's definitely competitive. It's one of those things, though, I think it's being overshadowed by the fact that Canada just went in clutch for, years in a row, to the point where, they were all really close. Canada just happened to win them by the smallest margin. We just watched the smallest margin possible really happen in 3-on-3 overtime. And if anybody knows me, when the Toronto Maple Leafs go into 3-on-3 overtime, I'm sick to my stomach because I know what's coming. Someone's going to lose their man. They're going to have two players go too low in the offensive zone. It's going to lead to an odd man rush the other way. And a lot of times on those odd man rushes for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they don't correctly pick up the players because they don't have their head on a swivel. It's fast, I understand that, but someone ends up open. And Chris, what did we see happen? That exact thing. In insanity that only really happens on 3-on-3 because you lose your man and you're playing man on man. It's not like your traditional defense when you're playing 5-on-5 where you can easily let someone go. If you let someone go or don't grab somebody, there's a goal. We saw it happen. So that is just an example of why 3-on-3 hockey is very exciting. I prefer to see 5-on-5 because I think it makes it a bit more of a dogfight rather than a skate around, because both games, even the bronze that we will talk about, went into overtime, and there was a lot of skating in that one, Chris. But a point that I should bring out, and maybe Team Canada was watching our show, was if you're on the power play and you have a lead and it's getting near the end of that power play, have 2 defensemen out there, Chris. They did that finally. They realized from their previous mistake and lined that one up. So that was nice to see them make that correction. A terrible breakaway to start the game for Canada. A huge opportunity, just completely missed. Then Sarah Fillier, really high danger chance. Canada had their shots in overtime. They didn't capitalize, but not in a necessarily bad way. On the second one, Sarah Fillier did everything she really could have there. But, we saw overtime. You get broken. It's a counterattack. And that's about as close of a margin as you could possibly come to. And you and I talked about this. Once the 3-minute mark hit, the referees went, okay, we can't call any more penalties. We got to stop this. Then there was major NHL level hits, both sides. And then there was 2 clear tripping penalties on both sides. No, we're just going to let them play. We got to let them play.
We're just going.
and they did, thank God, because it's one of those things where it mucks it up. They didn't muck it up too bad. It was, there was some chintzy stuff, but once they realized, hey, this is going down to the wire, we got to stop, they stopped. So kudos to the referees in that situation too. But Hillary Knight got absolutely dumped at one point. I'm going, that's a penalty. No, we'll just let him go.
There was so much. Yeah, I mean, like the contact, the physicality, the way that the game has just continued to evolve, and for the size of the players, and all those different things. And I just thought it was such a great piece of hockey for both sides in the end. Like, if you take that whole game and you say, well, Canada, they score a shorthanded goal on a breakaway, and Team USA is starting the period with a power play. And that we've talked about the rink before, that there are going to be bounces. I don't know if you saw the replay.
Just wait until next segment.
Okay, well, we'll save it. But that was wild, because that was a bounce and a half. And I know it made Layla Edwards look really bad on it, but
yes,
I don't know what she could have done there besides get some rockets in her skates. But
yes,
either way, I just think that Canada came in with all the learnings from the previous loss. And they said, we are not going to play that game. We are not getting into a track meet. And they took away Team USA's forecheck very quickly. They were so good in the neutral zone, so disciplined in the neutral zone that really.
What were they doing in the neutral zone, Chris? Were they trapping it up a little?
They might have been stacking it a little bit in the neutral zone, and maybe we're doing a little Babs hockey there. And just remind me, if you're ever coaching a team, I'm going to go flip to the other channel. But
I'm New Jersey Devils from the early 2000s New Jersey Devils hockey advocate.
Yeah, you're not the other Babs. You're the other Lou Lamoriello or Jacques Lemaire. But either way, you've got so many great moments in this game where you just see good quality hockey, smart play. And then, you also have to give a ton of credit to Megan Keller on the game winner. She made an incredible move on the play. And then that just barely snuck through Anne Renee Desbiens, who was so good throughout the entire game. It barely goes in. But yeah, Megan Keller, Quinn Hughes, makes his home in Canton, Michigan. Megan Keller from Farmington, Michigan. So, I think that there's some Michigan magic happening for Team USA over the last couple of days with the overtime goals. But, in the end, I think you also have to give a huge tip of the cap to Erin Frankel. There were some big saves. One of the saves she made on Fillier, at a point where if it goes 2-0, I think you're in the hole that's far too deep to dig out of. She made that big save and really gave USA the platform. She only allowed 2 goals in the entire tournament. USA ends up outscoring their opponents 33-2, and really we're a little over a minute away from being the most dominant team not to win a gold medal at this tournament.
Yeah, Canada struggled at points to get the puck out, Chris. You saw them blocking the puck like crazy, but their zone exit was rough at many points, like absolutely terrible. The United States had so many opportunities as a result of that, but it didn't end up mattering. Both goalies ended up in a position where like, hey, I have to be perfect for this entire third period. And, the United States stood on their head at certain points. They had probably 75% of the possession. And, offensive zone possession was really heavy on their end during that third period. Canada really needed to just clear that puck a little bit better, but they got bullied. The young group is coming up on for both sides, right, Chris? But a crazy display. The Americans, like I said, I talked them up the whole tournament. I had nothing negative to say about them, and Canada played a game to keep it close. But after the break, the Swiss, we will talk about them. But first, I have to tell you about Fortune Tires. Fortune Tires on FloHockey, whether driving to the rink or cross country, find a retailer near you at FortuneTiresUSA.com.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
All right, and we are back, guys, and we have to talk to you a little bit more about what we saw. But it's time for the Fortune 4, presented to you by Fortune Tires, the players who drove the action on the ice. And my player is the boards, because it helped Canada score their goal. A weird bounce, which we talked about previous. It was going to help someone at some point, and it helped Canada get their shorthanded goal. And then I have to credit Marie-Philippe Poulin, Captain Canada, playing unbelievable, given the fact that she is injured after so many Olympics. Hats off to Marie-Philippe Poulin.
She's gutsy, no question about it. And for my Fortune 4, I got to go with the goaltender, Erin Frankel. Incredible performance, just stopping everything that she saw, except for, one where she was hung out to dry a little bit by those boards that you talked about. And then in the end, Hillary Knight, in what was her final Olympic game, scores the biggest goal of her career. It sets the record for Team USA, and it sends the game to overtime. What a storybook ending for her.
Chris, do you think it's really her last game, or do you think Marie-Philippe Poulin, this is her last game, or do you think one of them just goes, nah, let's keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Hillary Knight, this is probably her last Olympic game. I hope that we get a few more really good seasons out of her in the PWHL. She's been outstanding there, so I think that she's absolutely going to be, still playing there. But I don't think that we're going to see her in another Olympics. I think that it's incredible, but 4 years is a long way to go. And I think that she wanted to make sure that she was going out on her own terms, and she is. It's been a great couple of days for her. She got engaged the other day. She's scores the biggest goal of her career, and then we have a great moment in the Olympics. So just a sensational game for her. And then for Marie-Philippe Poulin, I really hope it's not. I mean, I think as an American, you don't ever want to see her again because she's been the Grim Reaper for so many years. But now in 2 of the last 3 Olympics, USA has been able to get the better of her in these overtime settings. The last gold medal came via shootout, and now this one in overtime. But you knew she was a threat. There were a couple of moments there where she had the puck on her stick, and I was like, uh-oh. And I think she's still, both of them have all sorts of different things they can do next. Marie-Philippe Poulin does a lot of work with the Montreal Canadiens. Hillary Knight has been doing tons of other things in addition to playing women's, pro hockey. So I think they can do whatever they want in the sport. I think they can do whatever they want in the Olympic movement. I think they're great leaders for the sport as well, and I hope that they stay involved for a very long time.
Yeah, it's one of those crazy things where we're also seeing the gap close on the other side, Chris. So real quick, we will break down the Swiss game. A game in overtime, absurd amount of skating, where the Swiss looked dominant, Chris.
You know what? It helps when you have the players. And, I think Alina Mueller, Lara Stalder were 2 of the players that were, they were a cut above. And Alina Mueller scores. She also scored the bronze medal winning goal in 2014 in Sochi. It's been a great run for the Swiss hockey, and she's been a huge part of that. Probably will go down as the greatest, one of the greatest European women's hockey players that we've ever seen. And certainly she deserves all the credit for that. But also, it was so close for Sweden. It's such a heartbreaking way to go. They had the first goal of the game. They had a chance to do it. They had a couple of great looks. There were a number of chances in overtime, but in the end, it did come down to, which was the quicker team. I thought that, Switzerland had more of that speed. It did end up helping them in the 3-on-3 overtime. And, in women's hockey right now at the Olympics, if you aren't the U.S. or Canada, bronze is your gold medal. And to win an Olympic medal, regardless of sport, is something that no one can ever take away from you. And the way that they celebrated that, like it was a gold medal, it just goes to show you how important it is. And I will say, a lot of people want to talk about, it's a 2-team race. Why would you have this in the Olympics? You need to give those countries something to aspire to. Yep. And if you don't have it in the Olympics, the funding goes significantly away. Women's hockey is getting better and better. We still need more time for it to get even better. And unfortunately for the European countries, as they get better, so does the US and Canada. So I think we're at the, the peak of that. And then, but I shouldn't say peak. We don't know where it's going to go. But having the Olympics and having those games is such an incredible point for just continuing to grow the sport. And I think, another thing that we'll see outside of women's hockey, I do think eventually, maybe within the next 8 years, we're going to see 3-on-3 hockey as well. So that's the other thing that I think could come up as an actual Olympic sport. They're doing it for basketball. I do think you could see 3-on-3 hockey, shorter games, smaller ice surfaces for the Olympics down the road. So just continue to grow the sport. That's what the Olympics can do.
Yeah, 3-on-3 hockey has been something they've been trying to really kickstart in North America. It's started and stopped with the major pusher there, but the question you have to run with that is, in basketball, 3-on-3 basketball is a dramatically different sport. But if you compare it to hockey, well, 3-on-3 hockey is pretty much just the same thing, just faster. So interesting to see which players would be selected for that. And would you have NHL guys that just play 3-on-3, or would they be, there's a lot of questions to be brought up there. There's guys playing 3-on-3 right now that are just 3-on-3 guys that play in 3 ice. Swaggy P, notably.
Yeah, get
plays
Swaggy P on the team.
Yeah, and hey, add Coach Chippy too. Why not?
No, let's get like Brandon Hawkins, like some of the top ECHL guys. Like, yeah, there's a lot of really fun opportunities. They actually did test 3-on-3 hockey, Babs, at the Youth Olympics a couple of years ago. And I heard really good reports about it, and the Olympics liked what they saw. And that was actually from young players. So I would be interested to see, and I just can't wait to see what it is. Like the way it worked out for basketball, it was European pros that had played in the NBA. Like Jimmer Fredette was on that, if you guys remember that name from years past. But, you know, in the end, I think what we saw for this women's Olympic hockey tournament and the final thoughts on that, because is we got everything we asked for, really. And what we wanted was a very competitive medal round, which we got. We got a competitive gold medal game, a competitive bronze medal game. We saw two countries fighting to the bitter end for that medal. And it just reminds you of how inspirational the Olympics can be. I mean, it was a blast to watch. And now we get more games, you know, on the men's side, the semifinals, the gold medal games there. So more opportunities to really continue to grow the game and get people into it. It was really cool to see the country kind of paying attention to women's hockey the way that they were today.
Yeah, and Canada gets a silver medal, which most of them just don't want, but they will not be throwing it into the stands like you and I saw happen at the World Juniors one year. They will just go home and try and regroup, because different from the men's side as well is the Women's World Championships will come up and they're going to be right back at it. So yes, you win at the Olympics, but you can get your revenge right back, right? So that is a ongoing process, or who's going to win the rivalry series. It never stops on the women's side. So they will be able to get their lick back eventually. So Canada's going to try and even things up eventually, I guess in the spring. But as we get set up for some of the other games, we're going to have to talk about Team Canada. They're playing Finland. We're going to talk about Team USA and their matchup against Slovakia. Lots and lots of drama surrounding what's going on with some of the players. We saw a report with Sam Bennett. I guess he might have been sick for the last game. You look and go, who else might be dealing with issues? Is everybody going to be fully recovered? Are players going to be able to play the absurd amount of minutes we just saw played in the women's game? What was the highest one? 28 minutes played?
30 in the end. Renata Fast had 31 minutes in the game. She played over half of the third period. Insane. But yeah, and then there was another Ella had 28 minutes. Yeah, so just insane numbers out there.
Insane numbers. So we're going to see if that stuff ends up falling into the men's side, with injuries being a concern, with players not necessarily feeling well. We saw Sweden down Victor Hedman yesterday. That had an impact on their defensive core. Also, that point I brought about Bratt hopping in there and having to play. Everyone on line's going, how do you bench a guy for 40 minutes and then you activate him? There's a lot of drama and a lot of question marks. You know, we don't usually see this amount of drama and question marks, but I guess in the information age of social media, and between that and the Czech coach just getting flamed on the internet, Chris, not
by you,
by me and others. It's not just
you
me.
And others.
Me and others. I piled on. Yeah, an insane day today of hockey. The insanity is not done. Yeah, I don't know. It's such a big letdown after watching one of these games in terms of the adrenaline. It just kind of falls
right.
To the floor.
Like I need a nap.
Yeah.
I need a nap. Like I need a nap. I need a full meal. I need, a full night's sleep at this point. And then we got to re-rack it for single elimination hockey for the men's games tomorrow.
Yep. But we'll break down Canada versus Finland right after the break, which is presented to you by Fortune Tires on FloHockey, the official tire of the AHL. Find your nearest retailer at FortuneTireUSA.com.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
are back from the break. We have to talk to you about a monumental matchup between Canada and Finland. Somehow, Canada, the number 1 seed, gets the harder seed. But is that truly the case? Well, it doesn't appear to be because the Slovaks have played very well. But Canada, Finland, last time matched up, the 4 nations face off. Chris, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Canada is going to have to come ready to play. Obviously, there's a number of outstanding factors, including the availability of Sidney Crosby and a number of other things that we'll talk about later. But really, I think for Finland, it's just about being a team that's difficult to play against and making sure that the game is hard for Canada. I think that's really the way that they find success. And so it's not always in that most exciting brand of hockey, but I think they know that they can't just sit back, because I think there's challenges that you can put on Canada. Czechia did not sit back last game, and they didn't necessarily just wait for their chances. You've got to be able to counter and other things like that. And, as you mentioned at the last segment, is Canada fully healthy? A number of players did not practice today.
Yep.
That's not necessarily a surprise. These are short tournaments.
Yeah.
You're going to give guys days off. You're going to try to make things work, however else. But to me, this game is all about, if Canada continues to play the way that they've played for the bulk of this tournament, with the exception of, parts of last game, they're going to have success. I don't think that you're going to probably get what you can't do is allow yourself to get down early. And what you really can't do is let Finland get a second goal and then just completely put the boa constrictor out there and just say, nope, we are not letting anybody through after that. So, for me, I think that this is a tough matchup. I do think that the U.S. has the better of the 2 matchups, though Slovakia did beat Finland. The Finns are without Barkov. We'll see how healthy they are. They were down a few guys due to illness and other things like that, but Anton Lundell came back, so I think they're in a better position. Boy, there is plenty to break down, and I think really, and I'll let you focus a little bit more on the Canadian side of things, because I think that they are still very much, the team that has played the best hockey overall over the course of this tournament.
No, Canada has to make sure they're not playing too tight. Like my hat is that I keep adjusting it because it's somehow leaving marks on my head, as you can see here and here. Bad move on me, equipment malfunction. But Canada can't play too tight in this game. They got to go in a little looser. I felt like they were a little tight going into the Czech game, and also that first period was a disaster because of poor officiating. Really started, it was an awkward start. Goals that shouldn't have happened for Czechia happened. And Sidney Crosby, again, that was a huge hit, losing him. So they loosened up afterwards, I think, after Sid spoke to them. But if I'm John Cooper right now, you're gonna have to dress Sam Bennett, Wilson, Marchand, and break things up early. Go out there. You just line match. I understand that Tom Wilson's going to play with McDavid a lot because he's able to have those one-touch passes and he's effective. He stops the nonsense. And Finland also doesn't have a bunch of guys that are known for having just a lot of nonsense. It's not compared to Czechia, where Czechia had a lot of instigator types, a little bit less on the Finnish side, and also Finland plays a bit of a not as aggressive style of game. But I think they need to run the heavy hitter line. I think that would be fantastic to see a little bit. Also, I don't mind playing McKinnon, Salabrini, and McDavid early. You can shift your lines around a little bit, but set the tone, smash guys around a little bit. I think that'll put Canada in a better spot, not playing as tight with the puck. Canada also on the top of the blue. The defensemen need to lob pucks in if they're thinking it might get blocked. Just chip it over. We saw 2 really great opportunities for Czechia off that. One of them resulted in a goal. So you have to keep that in mind. Don't have those blockable passes and shots, but mostly shots on the blue line. That's basically the keys to success for Canada. They can run over any team. Any goalie can be hot, though, on the opposite side, though, Chris. So how do you feel like Finland is going to be able to do with some of the success that they've already had in the tournaments, more specifically the previous game?
Yeah, I think for them, it's just really, getting a good performance out of UC Saros is going to be a critical thing. You need your goaltender going, and if he's able to give you a great game, because he had his mistakes against Switzerland, he had some tough moments in that game that cost his team, and if he can eliminate those, because those will hurt you even more against Canada, I think they're in good shape to be competitive. I don't think, to me, I really don't see any path for Finland to win the game aside from, getting that early goal. I mean, almost a game similar to like what we saw the Canada women play today, where it was like, hey, they scored that goal, put USA back on their heels. You've got to get Canada on their heels back at some point. Because there were nerves. You are totally right about, like, there were such nerves and the tightness of that game. And there's been a lot of talk about, like, if, let's say it's unlikely, I'll say it's unlikely that Crosby plays tomorrow. That gets Nick Suzuki back into the middle of the ice where he's more effective. That's something that a lot of people have brought up, is that, you've got guys playing in unfamiliar positions they're not as comfortable with, so it's not a blessing to lose Sidney Crosby by any stretch of the imagination, but you have this ability to put some players into better positions to succeed as a result of that. And so, can you do that? And can you put the pressure on Finland? Like, does John Cooper need to go to the McKinnon, McDavid, Celebrini line as early and often?
Yep. Canada has last change, by the way, so we should address. Canada has last change, so they can line stuff up however they wish, at being the number 1 seed, a huge advantage. And you can line match. So I think they should look at doing that. I think they should mix the lines a little bit at some points too. But Tom Wilson didn't play a whole lot in the third period of that Czechia game. Makes me start to wonder, were they concerned about him losing his head, or if Radko Doofus was going to try and get him going again? Was that going to be a problem for Team Canada? So that is something that I'm going to watch more in the next game to see if they don't trust Tom Wilson out there late. But at the same time, too, when you have injuries in this tournament, you cannot risk people being suspended, because then you have a shorter bench. Now, granted, yes, if you only have 4 lines to play with, that you can get by, but you'd prefer to have 4 lines plus 1, right? So,
yeah, and I mean, if you're outside, if Crosby's out and say something else happens and you lose another player, well, yeah, then you're down to 12. You lose another player, now you're down to 11, and so. You could potentially dress the extra defenseman as well.
Dress 8, you could dress 8.
You could go 12 and 8 if you want to, and whatever else. But like, you have a little bit more roster flexibility in that way. But I do think that, with the health being a thing, and you talked about it the other day, and I think there's a lot of truth to it. Is how is McKinnon? Is he
Sore.
Fully healthy?
There's no way. There's no way.
And that's the thing, is like, you've got a lot of guys that are. And that's, if you're Finland, you've got to smell that blood in the water and find a way to take advantage of that.
Well,
really,
Chris, that's a great thing that you bring up. I'm shocked no one has slashed Brady Tkachuk in the hand yet. Are you? Like, I'm shocked that no one's done it.
Right, because he's been wrapped up the whole time.
Well, it just he had a rough go with that hand to start the season in the NHL. I'm shocked to know they're the Tkachuk brothers are targeting other people. I'm surprised no one's targeting them back in the same way. Obviously slashing somebody in the hand, if it looks intentional, it's 5 in a game and you're gone. So like, you can't really sewer your team that hard. And the U.S. has been playing in some of these a little bit tighter games, so teams aren't going to necessarily do the stupid thing. But if we see, I mean, I don't know. Czechia, I brought up Czechia being like the instigator team. Slovakia doesn't give me those vibes really in the same way at all. I think they're probably going to play a cleaner game, and maybe it's a cut between the way that Sweden plays and the way that Czechia played. Maybe they fall in the middle of that. But yeah, just an interesting note, Chris, I wanted to make sure I brought up.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. There's going to be a lot to watch. Like, it's certainly not going to be a cakewalk for anybody the rest of the way here. And you see the times that we got the games. I mean, what a great day of hockey we're going to have. Starting it off with Canada, Finland, and then going to Slovakia, USA, playing at 9:00 at night every single day. And then if they do make the gold medal game, it's an early game. It's a midday game local time on Sunday. So that's going to be interesting to watch, as well as Canada has played earlier in the evening or midday essentially there too. So lots of things to keep an eye on as these matchups progress.
Yeah, and I think they're gonna have to have a deeper look at this and say, hey, we're gonna add an extra day. We're gonna start the men's tournament earlier and space things out because it's the rest and like the need for some guys. Like I said, William Nylander hadn't practiced at all. You need to add rest days in, and it could maybe prevent some of these fatigue related injuries that we've seen. But guys, after the break, we are going to break down Slovakia, USA, a matchup we haven't seen in an extended period of time, but Safkowski played very good the last time it did happen. Fortune Tires, guys, presents our show every single day, and they are the official tire of the AHL, built for every drive, every season. Find yours at Fortune Tire USA, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
All right, hey, USA Slovakia matchup that we have seen previous, but just not with all the same players, except for Slafkovsky. He was there. So, Chris, how you feeling about this matchup?
You know, I think I think the matchup does favor the USA a little bit more than Finland does. So, you know, I think you have to maybe thank Slovakia, but you also have to be careful what you wish for, because I don't think that Slovakia is by any means a pushover. We've seen what they can do here in this setting against big teams, and they can make a lot of plays, and they've got a lot of confidence right now, and they've gotten good goaltending too from Samuel Halavai. So I think there's a lot there, but yeah, they did play 2018 rather. Or what is it? 2022. Geez, who knows how they all run together. 2022.
Yeah.
Slafkovsky was the hero in the game. They beat the U.S., which did not have NHL players, though Brock Faber was on that team, and Jake Sanderson was also on that team. So, you know, there is some familiarity there in terms of that. But even Slafkovsky said, like, this is a totally different ball game here. This is reaching this stage of the tournament is what he said 100 times better. As I saw in, I believe it was NHL.com. So it's really, you know, for the U.S., the depth is, their advantage is their depth. You've got to beat them with depth. You've got to make sure that you aren't allowing them, you're not making mistakes and allowing them opportunities. You've got to test Halavai very early in the game. Once he gets settled in, he is very difficult to beat. So there's a lot of things, and a lot of it just really goes to starting better. I think the U.S. has needed to start their games a little bit better throughout this entire tournament. The first period has been okay typically. There's really not a lot of time for feeling out at this stage. you want to get into your game early. You want to get into that forecheck early, and you want to put a lot of pressure on the D, because I do think that this pace that the U.S. plays at, even though they haven't been as fast as I think we wanted to see them be, that is going to challenge Slovakia in a way that no one that they have played yet has.
Yeah, the one thing that I think, and you brought it up, but I'm gonna say it again, is the vibes, and I think this is a battle of that, and I think that is going to play an impact. I don't think Slovakia cares that they're playing against Team USA. I think they're just gonna come in and play their game. I don't think it's gonna rattle a lot of the guys that play on the Slovak team. So Slavkovsky's going to play well. Sami Halava, again, has just already had to deal with so many shots, so many big moments, that I think he's going to be able to get over the hump. Also, a learning process for them when they lost but won against Sweden in the preliminary rounds. So it really all kind of falls on Slav in this situation, man. Like, he has to have his best game. And if he has his best game, there's a chance for Slovakia. But if he doesn't have his best game, it's going to be tough. But they're going to have to be really careful. They're going to have to be really careful line matching, because the Kachuk brothers are going to be all over Slav. They're going to be attacking him nonstop.
Yeah, I mean,
so you gotta make sure.
There's no question that he's going to have a tough. You're right. Sorry for cutting you off. He is going to have a tough day, with how they're going to go after him, and I think everybody knows. And as we saw, this Slovak team did, play Sweden, lost to Sweden 5-3, but they scored that goal that really put them into this position, scoring that third goal, and it set up this opportunity that they have in front of them now to play the lowest of the top seeds. They're the 3rd overall. USA is the 2 overall. And then Canada has the 1 overall, and then Finland's 4 overall. So, all the favorites have really, it's been a chalk bracket so far.
Yeah.
But it really, I think the only way that the U.S. loses this game is if they get caught looking ahead. Like, so let's say Canada wins, and we expect them to, and now you're like, okay, well, we know we got to play Canada tomorrow. Well, you got to get through Slovakia first. And I do think that they're going to take that game as serious as a heart attack. They know how difficult it would be to live it down if they didn't reach the gold medal game this year. So there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of pressure, and all of it is on USA. And that is, as we saw today, can create nerves. I think the U.S. women today played very nervous to start the game.
Yeah.
And it impacted their game.
And we got to talk about the neutral zone. It's annoying. I know they were talking about the smaller ice not having a giant impact. It clearly is. Like, there's no getting around it. The neutral zone is chalked up with players because they know, hey, if we load it up, it's going to make it very hard. And then they're going to dump the puck in. It's easier. It's also easier for the goaltenders to play the puck too, Chris, right? So when the corners are smaller and they're tighter like they are, the goalies can come out and play the puck easier because it's going to end up to them faster. So the neutral zone is a pain point. So if you're Slovakia or if you were USA and you're going into a game, the USA is going to stack that neutral zone and make it very hard for the Slovaks to break out. Canada did the same thing to the USA on the women's side. They got everybody in the neutral zone and made it annoying. So if you're the Slovaks, you got to find a way. I don't know what that way is. I don't know if it's lofting every puck up and so the goalie has to play it and you're hoping, you get the crazy bounce and you have the Vesatoska lot or something. Like you need a weird one, because I don't know how they're going to be able to break out against the United States. And I think that is really that could be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it's a great point, because I think that was something that really USA struggled with over the course of yesterday's game against Sweden. And that was that, if they did not enter the zone with possession, they were not getting the puck back. And that's partially because Markstrom would come out and play it. It's also because you would get, guys like Carlson and Lindholm and whoever else that were getting back to pucks quickly and retrieving them so well and getting rid of them. So like, that's another thing that I think you really have to pay attention to, is the neutral zone. And yes, it is smaller. It's easier to clog up, and you don't get a chance to build as much speed into that zone entry. And it seemed like, that's where guys like Jack Hughes become very important. That's where guys like Quinn Hughes become very important. Who's coming in, bringing the puck across the line, creating plays. I think Matt Boldy is a guy that can do that very well also. So they have players that can make those kinds of plays. But as we saw against Sweden, it can be really difficult to enter with possession. So that's going to be a real factor in the game. And really, like, that's the thing. If Slovakia can game plan appropriately and make things more difficult, and then maybe pop one even by accident, which can happen in
And
these
that's
games.
what they need, though. That's the
They need
breaker,
a bounce.
right?
They need a bounce, no
And
question.
we saw that for Team Canada today. A weird rim play off the boards. It just shot out. You can't.
Yeah,
it's not
and like poor Layla Edwards looked like, you know, she was playing it like it would be normal,
Yeah,
and it went the other way, and then she
looked
had no
slow
chance
today
to react.
too, Chris. So that's one point that was brought up on the broadcast is she did look a little slower today. So that could have been a thing that was playing an impact as you're at the end of this tournament and players are getting banged up and just tired.
Yeah.
She looked a little heavier footed today. But you don't know with these boards, and I think some of the goalies have brought this up just a tad, is this, they aren't sure. But you know, neither Hellebuyck or Hulave are the type of goalie that are going to go out there and be that like spare defenseman like Jordan Binghamton is. He does just really cool, funny, exciting stuff with the puck. Like he really plays it. So if you're Hellebuyck, maybe you have to think, hey, maybe I should play this a little bit more. And it, one or two extra times could be a real difference, because if the Slovaks really start to run out of possession time, that's what possession really seems just to be the perfect indicator of success.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt. And I think, you know, like for me, that this is where the value of the U.S. defenseman is at its highest, is their ability to retrieve pucks. That's been one of the things that I've been looking at throughout this entire tournament and saying that's a huge advantage for the U.S. against really anybody they play, is that they've got guys that retrieve pucks effectively. They didn't get eaten alive by the forecheck. They definitely got forechecked harder. You know, I think some of the players, Brock Faber, Jake Sanderson at various times, but like, you know, then you have guys like Jacob Slavin, where if he doesn't beat you by foot, he's just going to, you know, kill that play somehow. So they have a lot of guys that can do it a lot of different ways. And then, you know, Quinn Hughes is the guy, you know, like he's maybe one of the best puck retrieval defensemen in the NHL. He's probably one of the best with it on his stick in the NHL. And he's shown that in these Olympics.
Yeah, teams may have to just, you know, be able to change. I think game plans have to change a lot. Canada really changed their game plan going in on the women's side. And on the men's side, I think you'll see Team USA will probably be making the exact same adjustments. They have a really experienced coaching staff. John Tortorella is there. And guess what John Tortorella has been doing this year? A whole lot of nothing. This is his only job. So John Tortorella has had the opportunity to think about this stuff quite a bit. He's also a veteran coach who's had to win in big situations. I think the USA will make the proper adjustments to be able to even everything out, Chris. And again, Sullivan, a coach who I picked for Coach of the Year. He's not winning that, but he was a great coach when he was in Pittsburgh. We're going to talk a little bit about the refereeing because of just it's just an ongoing topic we will never get away from. But after the break, yeah, referees. Also, Sidney Crosby. What's going on with him and how much of an impact will that have on the game? But we will see you guys right after the break.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
we're back from the break, and we have to talk about Sidney Crosby, who is battling through injury right now in the same way that I am doing this show. Chris, the referees missed a massive interference by Racco Doofus on Sidney Crosby. Yes, I will say that forever. That is what his name is now. So Sidney Crosby, we're hoping this isn't his last Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, so John Cooper has not officially ruled him out for the game, so that's good. It sounds like he's going to try to skate tomorrow. There was imaging. No one has said what happened from that. This is basically like Stanley Cup playoffs. The veil of secrecy will be under this, and we won't know until Crosby is out there. But as we saw with Hedman, there is the decision that you have to make. Let's say Crosby tries to go tomorrow, which I don't think is going to happen. I think if anything, they'll try to save him, and hopefully he can play for a gold medal. But you lose that roster flexibility if you leave somebody on the bench, because there are guys that are in your lineup that you don't want to play a lot of minutes. You can't have another one that's going to be on the bench to play zero.
Yep.
And so you've got to make that decision early about what's right for the team. You also, you're losing your emotional leader on top of one of your, best players and one of your best ambassadors, and really the guy that takes a lot of the burden from a lot of these players. If there's McDavid and McKinnon and everybody else, and they've got a lot of attention on them, Sidney Crosby's the guy that is still the captain of this team and is responsible for a lot of those things. I think he's such a remarkable player. And I hope this is not his last Olympics.
Yep.
Time is time. And, there's going to be a wave of players, and maybe he'll still be part of that group as we go into 4 years from now in France. But, if it ends the way, it sounds like, if it did end that way, I really, really think that his legacy is cemented no matter what, which we already knew, but it's what he did in between periods of that game in Czechia, which is such a big part of his leadership. He calmed the room down, according to all reports. He was the leader that everyone expected him to be. There are so few players, you follow people long enough, they'll find ways to let you down. Sidney Crosby has been nothing but the best, in terms of the best for the sport. And I'm saying this as an American who was watching in 2010 when he slipped that puck between Ryan Miller's legs, and I was devastated, and I cursed the name Sidney Crosby at the time. But you watch him, and as a fan of hockey, he's one of the best things that has happened to the sport since Wayne Gretzky, and is one of our great ambassadors. So I hope we see him back in the Canadian Maple Leaf once again, because he's just one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, and with Sid, it's you don't know much about Sid's personal life. It's not like Wayne Gretzky, where it was all in the papers and he had a famous wife. Sidney Crosby, you actually really don't know all too much about him, and he's private, doesn't say much either. You haven't really heard him speak out on a lot of topics. He's just Mr. Hockey. So he does a lot of Tim Hortons commercials. You can say that. So apparently laughs through them. They showed some behind the scenes, and he can't keep it together. He's apparently quite a goofy guy. And the Pittsburgh Penguins actually posted a video up of them taking their team photo, and Ben Kindle was the only player who didn't tuck his tie in, and they were all making fun of him, and Sidney Crosby was having a good time with the boys. So it does go to show you that he is just a significant role model and a guy that just likes to have fun. Yeah, there's not really too many bad words to be said about Sidney Crosby after he stopped diving a couple years into his career. They fixed that up, and he was good to go. So there's not really anything else you could say about his career that's negative. Overall, I hope he plays. I find it very doubtful, but he can still be in the locker room and stuff. He will be a presence throughout the remainder of the games that they play. He will be around, so Sidney Crosby can still calm the boys down and say what he needs to say. Not allowed on the bench. I don't believe he would be able to put a suit on, but he can sit in the locker room and tell him what's up. So that is something that it'll be a topic, and Gary Bettman and the owners are not happy that he's hurt. So are the Pittsburgh Penguins, actually. Refereeing, the IIHF came out and said, hey, yeah, like that was an error. So, they took it on the chin. Online, it's been a bloodbath, Chris. Not a good look.
Man, imagine if they lost. Just imagine if they lost. My goodness.
Yes, it would have been horrible.
Yeah, but here's the other thing. You know what I actually really liked about all that is that Drew Doughty today came out and he's like, I didn't know they had 6 on the ice. None of us knew they had 6 on the ice until after the game we found out. And he's like, it happens. And I was like, all right, well, that's a great attitude to have. If like, you wouldn't have felt that way if you lost the game, right? No. But that's a good attitude to have because, hey, it also is a good reminder that is the bounce. That's the bounces. Sometimes it's a bounce off the glass. Sometimes it's a bad call. Sometimes it's this is the Olympics. The margins are so slim. And so everything has to be perfect. And that is not hockey. Hockey is an imperfect sport played with this little vulcanized rubber disc that bounces all over the place. Anything can happen. Yep. And we'll see what happens tomorrow during the semifinals.
Yes, and we will be live immediately after that. So make sure to stay tuned. And after today, you can just watch hockey. FloHockey. We got the OHL, AHL, ECHL. Thank you to Fortune Tires for sponsoring this show. And we will see you guys on the flip side.
Crowd already engaged here tonight inside the blue line.
Along the wall. Centering pass off the skate. Byro scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey. We're going to play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot on a goal. And hits his first goal of the season. Loving out of the air. Wow, going in. 1, 2.
Crowd already engaged here tonight inside the blue line.
Along the wall. Centering pass off the skate. Long ahead. This goes. Break play. Going in. Byro scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey. We're going to play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot on a goal. And hits his first goal of the season. Loving out of the air. Wow, going in. 1, 2.